I'm going to give you a hint. I think Mrs. Hayes taught it already. Do you know what the word science means? Science means knowledge. So we have science class because we look, we observe things, and we find out stuff that we know. Right? So science is stuff that we know. Now, why do we have to have science class? So we can be smart. So we can learn more things, right? Do you think there's anybody in the whole world that would never need a science class? Is there anybody in the whole world that doesn't need a science class? Who is that? God. Why does God not need science class? Does God know everything already? Doesn't he? God knows everything. Isn't that what our verse says? God is greater than our heart and knoweth or knows all things. God knows everything. So, God knows even more than the science teachers, doesn't he? Doesn't he? So, something we should always remember, and I know we're not in school anymore. School is done for a couple weeks or months. But if God says something and the science teacher says something, God says this, and the science teacher says, I don't think that's true, I think this. Who's right? God or the science teacher? God. That's right. And has God ever said anything to us? How do we know what God has said? Do we have any of the words of God? And where do we have the words of God? If you're in the front row. Where are the words of God?
In the Bible.
In the Bible. So if we read something in the Bible, and the science teacher says, that's not true, this is true. Who's telling the truth? The Bible or the science teacher? The Bible is. Because God, these are God's words, and God knows everything. He is omniscient. Remember that word from last week? Omniscient. God is omniscient. Omni means all, and shint means science, means knowledge. All knowledge. God has all knowledge. He knows everything. He knew about, let's see here. Who can see if we remember some names? He knew about this lady here. Now this is going to be a hard one. Does anybody remember what this lady's name is from last week's story? I don't think you would know because you weren't here last week. And I'm hoping, I'm going to ask Abby just to see if Mrs. Voegtlin knows what page of the story this is from. No. Jayla, who's this lady right here? It's not. Look at her. She's kind of upset. She's saying, I'm not going to go there, right? It's the first queen, right? Queen Vashti. Then, who's this lady? This lady is Esther. That's right. And Esther was in probably the beauty contest with the greatest reward that has ever been on the earth. What did they win if they won this beauty contest that Esther was in? They could be the queen. That's right. And Esther won it, right? She's the queen. Now, there's another man. Who's Mordecai? Do you remember the name Mordecai? Who's Mordecai? Does Mordecai know who Esther is? How do Mordecai and Esther know each other? Brother and sister? Close. Or an uncle? What? Cousins. They're cousins. But Mordecai is old enough to be her uncle because he's old enough to be her dad. In fact, he raised her. Why does Mordecai like her uncle or her dad? Because Esther's parents are dead, right? Esther doesn't have any parents. Both both her parents are dead, and so Mordecai is like her father. And she obeys her father, doesn't she? She does what Mordecai tells her to do. And Mordecai got her to be in the contest, and she won the contest. So now, at the end of last week, Esther became the queen. So do you think Esther and Mordecai lived together anymore after Esther became the queen? No. Mordecai took care of Esther, and she's a beautiful young lady now, and now Mordecai is all by himself, isn't he? And where's Esther? Where's Esther? Esther's living in the palace. And so Mordecai, he worked for the king, he worked for the government, and he would be around the gate of the palace. And one day, while he was around the gate of the palace, he heard two other of the king's servants, and they were really, really angry. They were super angry, and they were super, super, super angry at King Ahasuerus. Do we know why they were angry? But somebody knows why they were angry, don't they? Who knows why they were angry? Who knows why they were angry at King Ahasuerus? God. God knows. Now, God did not tell us why. He just told us that these two men were super angry. And they got so angry, they said, let's kill him. Now, it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to plan out how you're going to do it. And somehow, Mordecai is sitting there, and he overheard these two men. I'm not even going to try to say their names, because they were kind of weird Persian names. But these two guys, they got together, and they had the whole plan. They had it planned out. They knew when the king would be going from this place to that place or something. We don't know exactly the plan, but they had the plan. They were going to kill King Ahasuerus, and Mordecai heard it. Mordecai thought, well, I don't want the king to die. So, what do you think Mordecai did? You think he went and told the king? How could Mordecai can't go just, not anybody can just go see the king. Mordecai couldn't go see the king. The king doesn't see just anybody. He's got a throne room with soldiers all the way around him, protecting him. Nobody can just go and see the king. So who do you think Mordecai told? No, he didn't tell them. Who does Mordecai know? Yeah. Mordecai told Esther, and then Esther went. And now Esther, she can't always tell the king, but she had important news. She doesn't want the king to die either. So she got the message to the king that Mordecai had found out about this secret plot. And so the king sent out his detectives, and I don't know if they used magnifying glasses or not, but they found out that the plot was true. And they captured those two servants that wanted to kill the king, and they hung them. You know what it means to hang somebody? Wrap a rope around their neck, and they hung them from a great big tall gallows, and that means they died. Now, all of that happened got recorded in the king's diary. We'll call it a diary. The king would not the king, but somebody would write down for the king the things that happened. So, you would think that the king would be very grateful that Mordecai saved his life. But nothing happened. Nothing happened. Mordecai just kept sitting there. You think God knew that nothing happened? Yeah, God knew nothing happened. Nothing happened. You would think King Ahasuerus said, Mordecai, you saved my life. I'm going to promote you and give you a better position and let you tell certain people what to do. But Mordecai just had sitting there in the gate. One day, King Ahasuerus, he decided he was going to promote somebody. He was going to advance somebody, but it was not Mordecai. He found a guy that was going to be his number one assistant, and his name was Haman. Haman. And this is Haman. Haman is here, and King Ahasuerus said to Haman, Haman, I want you to take care of everything for me. Whatever I need done, you get it done. And so that meant that Haman was the second most powerful man in the whole country. Haman could do almost anything he wanted. And the king said, I want everyone to give reverence to Haman. Now, Persian kings, they got themselves, they thought they were so important. Some of them thought that they were like gods. And they would expect people to bow down to them. Right? They would bow down to a god. And so, the king said about Haman that we ought to reverence Haman just like you would reverence the king. And so, whenever Haman would be coming out of the palace, and all the servants would see Haman and they would bow down their heads. So you ready? Okay, I'm going to be Haman. Okay, I'm coming out. All of you are going to bow your head. Bow down. Bow down. I'm Haman. Bow down. Off. Bow down. I'm Haman. Okay, you can stand up. Or not stand up. Sit up. But, so whenever Haman would come out, all the people would bow down. But you see somebody here that's not bowing down? This older man is not bowing down. And you know why he's not bowing down? Because he doesn't believe that any man is God. No, we shouldn't bow down to men, should we? Shouldn't worship a man, just like we shouldn't worship an idol, right? And Mordecai, this is Mordecai. Mordecai, he sat in the gate or stood there in the gate, and when Haman would come out, everybody's doing, when Haman comes out, what does everybody do? They bow down. But what does Mordecai do? He stands up straight. Haman keeps going, and the other people say, Mordecai, you're supposed to bow down when Haman comes out. Mordecai says, I can't bow down. I only worship one God, the one true God. I'm not going to worship a man. He's not God. I'm a Jew. Well, the next time Haman comes back through, what does everybody do? They bow down. What does Mordecai do? Stand up straight. Almost like the 3 Hebrew children. When they were supposed to bow down, they stood up straight. Mordecai says, I can't bow down. I only worship God. So, after a while, those servants said, they went to Haman. They said, Haman, you know why Mordecai doesn't bow down? He doesn't bow down because he's a Jew. And he won't bow down to anything. He only worships God, is what he says. Mordecai was angry. Not Mordecai. Haman. Haman was angry. And he said, I'm going to take care of him. Nobody can just not do what they're supposed to do. And Haman said, Mordecai needs to die. And he started thinking, not just Mordecai. I want every Jew to die. Every single Jew needs to die because those Jews, they don't worship like we do. They're different from us. And so, Haman came to the king and said, oh, king, he thought he was tricky. He said, oh, king, there is a group of people in your kingdom. They have a completely different set of laws. They don't obey our laws. They obey their own laws. And they don't do the things that you want done. They do what their own laws say to be done. Now, was that true? No. Did the Jews have their own laws? Yes. Did the Jews obey the laws of Persia? Yes. They were peaceably living there. They didn't cause any trouble. There was only one Jew that didn't do one thing. Who was that? Mordecai. Mordecai did not do that one rule. But Haman made it sound like these people were wicked people, and they were subversive, and they were going to take over the kingdom. He didn't say who it was. He just said there's a certain people. And King Ahasuerus said, Haman, you take care of those people. And Haman says, I believe we should get rid of them. And I will even pay for it to take place. And King Ahasuerus says, you make a law, and here's my ring. Now, the king's ring was very powerful. So, Haman, it wasn't the ring that was powerful. But I'm going to explain. So, Haman he went back, and he wrote out a law. It was Haman's law. Now, he had to determine something, and they threw some dice until they figured out exactly what day and what month this was going to happen. But he wrote down the law, and it ended up saying that in the month of Adar, which was the 12th month, on the 13th day, all the Jews should be killed. In the whole province. How big was the province? Or how big was the empire? 127 provinces. Every city throughout the whole province, anybody that knew that there was Jews should find some way to kill those Jews. And then he said, and you can keep all of their stuff. Kill them and take their house, take their animals, take their money. Doesn't matter, you just keep it. We want to get rid of all Jews. And then he took the king's ring and he put like some wax on the paper and he stamped it with the king's ring. And so this was a law of the Medes and Persians stamped by the king. Whose law was it? Who wrote that law? Haman. The evil Haman wrote that law. But when it went out, whose law did it look like it was? The king's law. And so Haman made hundreds of copies, because one for every province at least, and even more. And the decree went out. It went out to the big city where they were, where Mordecai was, and all the rest of them. And the decree said, on the 13th day of the 12th month, all Jews should be killed, whether they're old or young or men or ladies or children. All of them should be killed, and then take whatever it is that they have for yourself. Well, Mordecai saw that law, and he was heartbroken. He was full of grief. He took off his good clothes and he put on some rags and called sackcloth and ashes, and he was crying and wailing out loud, almost like people already had been killed. And he was sitting there in the gate of the palace, and Esther heard. Now, Esther didn't know about this law. She was in the palace. She was living in the palace, and everything was great with her. And she's sitting there, and all of a sudden she hears that Mordecai, her foster father, was sitting in the gate with sackcloth and ashes on, making all kinds of noise. And so she sent a servant down with some clothes. She didn't know what was going on, and said, "Here, give these to Mordecai so that he can put on some decent clothes." Well, Mordecai got the message from Esther, and he said, "Send this message back to Esther." And what do you think he did? He took the writing that Haman had made, the king's law that Haman had made, and he sent a note along with it back to Esther and said, "Look, the king has made a law, Haman has written it, and all Jews are going to be killed. You have to go to the king and stop this law." So, the servant brought that message back to Queen Esther, and Queen Esther, when she saw the law, she thought, "This is a terrible law." And then she saw the note from Mordecai, says, "Go to the king and make him stop the law." Now, no one, not even the queen, can just walk right into the king. The king is in his throne room, isn't he? Soldiers all around guarding him. And if you go to talk to the king and he hasn't asked for you to come, and he doesn't like it that you came, those soldiers will take care of you. You're gone. It doesn't matter if you're the queen or not. And so Esther sent back a message to Mordecai saying, "No one can go and just talk to the king whenever they want to. I can't go and talk to the king. The king has not called for me to talk to him in at least 30 days. I can't just walk in there whenever I want." Mordecai got that message and he thought, "Esther, you must go in there." Now Mordecai was thinking. He was thinking, do you think God knew about Haman? Mm-hmm. You think God was going to let his people die? No. And Mordecai thought that way. So Mordecai said, "Esther, God is going to save his people. But we don't know where from. And what do you think? Maybe God put you in the palace to use you to save his people." And so Esther got that message back and she thought, okay. What do you think she did? Well, she didn't just go to the king right away. more than that. She sent one more message back to Mordecai, and she said to Mordecai, okay, I want you and all the Jews that are in the city to pray and to fast. Do you know what it means to fast? It means not to eat. In the morning, we break our fast, or we stop fasting. We eat breakfast from the night before. So, they fasted, and when they fasted, they prayed. And she said, for 3 days, and on the third day, and while you're fasting and praying, me and my servant ladies, we will be praying. And on the third day, I will go and talk to the king. And if I die, then I die. If Esther went to the king and he didn't want to hear her, she may have to die. Then what would happen? No more Esther. Well, Esther and her servant girls, they prayed that day, and they prayed all the next day, and then on the third day, Esther put on her queen's robe and her crown, and she started heading over to where the king was. In his throne room, soldiers all the way around him. Nobody comes in unless he calls them. If they come and show up without having been called, and he doesn't put his rod, his scepter out, then they are off with their head. Or probably they hung on the gallows too. What do you think is going to happen? You think Esther was scared? You think her heart was going really fast? You don't think she was? I would be. Because she could die. She had prayed, and Mordecai had prayed, and God knew what he was doing, didn't he? And so when Esther came, what do you think happened? See there, the king put out his scepter. He saw Esther, and he was happy. He said, oh, it's Esther. Come in. Now when Esther came in to see the king, she had an odd request. He said, Esther, what do you want? Why are you coming here? I'll give you whatever you want, up to half of the kingdom. I'll give you half the kingdom. What do you want? And so Esther said to the king, I would like. Now this sounds like an odd request. How many of you have heard this story before? Okay, so you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Or maybe you forgot. She said, I would like for you to come to dinner at my palace tonight. And bring Haman, your chief assistant. I want him to come too. Now, the king must have been thinking, Esther came all the way over here, risked her life, just to ask me to go to dinner. She wants something more than that. I'm smarter than that. She wants more than something. Maybe, probably, when we're eating dinner, she's going to ask me for something special. So, we have to wait till next week to see what happened at dinner. Yep. We have to wait till next week to see what happened at dinner. But, one thing we know is that God knows all this. He knew all the things that are going on. Do things ever happen in your life that you wonder, what is going on? Why did this happen? Or why did that happen? Why do I have to go to this school now? Or why do I have to... All different things happen in our lives. But we can know that there's one person that knows all of it, even if we don't understand, right? And that's God. And the thing that we should also remember, along with him knowing everything, God is also sovereign, isn't he? Remember from our stories right before? He knows everything, and he's in complete control, always in complete control of everything, everywhere. All right, so next week we're going to see what happened at dinner. Right now, there's a decree that Haman wrote that says all Jews must be killed. Now, it's in the 12th month of Adar. That's 11 months from now. Right now in our story, it's the first month. And so in 11 months, the Jews will be killed. That gives plenty of time for everybody to figure out who's a Jew and how much property they have and how they're going to kill them on that day so that they can have that property for themselves. Think God knows what's going on? You think God is going to take care of it? I think so, because we still have Jews around today. But we're going to have to see next week how he does it. All right.